select where, and let's have a very silly example. Let's say that select 600 plus 500 greater than 100. So this is just a true or false select statement, right? This is a select statement that is a subquery within the where statement, but this is not a correlated subquery. Do you guys agree? Because even though it is in where or if it's in the select, it has nothing to do with the external table. So the internal query will run only once because it does not have to double check all the branch names in the branch table. So even though if even though this is within the where clause, this is not a correlated subquery. Does that make sense? Right? Still not sure. Yes. Edward, just remember rule of thumb. Usually, whenever we have a subquery in the select statement or the where statement, remember those are the only two statements or clauses where we select rows or we select we select columns or we select rows, right? And so in that scenario, since we are selecting or projecting certain things, that is where subqueries can end up being correlated. However, if we have something in the from clause, then that basically means that it ends up being decorrelated. So that is why when you write a correlated subquery, your database system tries to modify your query and push as much as possible to the from clause in your query. Not all queries are possible to be decorrelated, and correlated queries are quite slow because of that for each internal loop thing. But so not all queries are possible to be decorrelated, but your database system tries to do that as much as possible, as we wrote, as we are looking in the homework example, right? Homework cases as well. So essentially, if you write a code, try to push as much as possible in the from clause, and that is how you decorrelate a particular query. Okay, so I hope that made some sense about correlated and decorrelated subqueries. Now let's have a quick review session. So we remember that, so any questions about subqueries or correlated subqueries or anything like that? Okay. Remember, let's just quickly have a brief review of the things that we have covered so far. So the exam will basically, as I said, cover till lecture 9, but it won't cover a lot about cursors, maybe a bit about definitions of cursors, but not actually write your own cursors because we did not have homeworks for those yet. So mainly, just as a quick recap, we talked about relational algebra. We talked about different fundamental operators in relational algebra. We talked about some of the differences between relational model and the SQL model, right? So the main difference being that the relational model or relational values are always sets, so no duplicate values. However, SQL models are multi-sets, right? So we can have duplicate values in SQL. We also talked a bit about forget about this one. This is not going to be 6 hours. So again, the exam is going to be posted on Thursday morning. So again, it's no class on Thursday. So you can use your books, your notes, your lecture slides. That is completely up to you. Please don't collaborate between other students. Try to solve, please solve it on your own. So essentially, the topics for our exam will be everything we have seen so far in our homework assignments. It will contain a lot of relational model questions about keys, relational algebra operations, queries, modifications. It will also contain some data definition commands such as create table, we talked about that, create a view, create a temporary table. How do we define integrity constraints? So using keys, right? So primary keys or differential integrity constraints such as foreign keys and things like that, altering existing database schemas, and there won't be any indexes. Okay. So we will also have select, insert, update, delete commands. We all are familiar with those by now. Grouping and aggregation would be there, and also remember that aggregates of aggregates are also a thing, right? We should remember that whenever we are performing aggregates of aggregates, right? So for example, let's ask you guys something. Let's say that I want to find out the maximum loan amount in each branch, right? The maximum loan amount in each branch. So I can group by branch and then get the maximum amount for each of those branches, right? Now, would that be an aggregate of an aggregate, or would that be just a single aggregate operation? Can you guys tell me? So let me just type out here. So let's say that I want maximum loan amount for each branch. So is that an aggregate of an aggregate operation or just an aggregate operation? Just an aggregate. Now let's say that, oh, let's do, sorry, sum of loan amount, but essentially the same thing. Some loan amount for each branch. It is not an aggregate of an aggregate, but just an aggregate, right? Now, if I say that give me the maximum, that each branch, get me the maximum amount from all of those branches, that's total maximum amount that every branch has given out. So essentially find me the sum of all those loan amounts and get me the max amount, get me the branch name that has given out the maximum loan. So basically max of this thing. So this would be an aggregate of an aggregate operation. So remember one thing, whenever we have an aggregate of an aggregate operation, we cannot do this in a single query. Whenever we have an aggregate of an aggregate, we need to separate it out into two different queries, right? Okay. So we also talked about procedural SQL, basically functions in SQL. We had talked about user-defined functions, how we can write our own functions. We had a lot of experience with stored procedures or stored functions. Those would be your sum function, your average function, count, date and time, timestamp, and all of those functions, right? We will not have anything about triggers, don't worry about that, and a bit about cursors, not that much. Okay. Okay, so mainly, as I said, remember the difference between the relational model and the SQL model, but also remember the different terminologies that we had. So what is a relation? What is a relation schema? What is a tuple? We are not going to be that strict on those things, but it is good to understand what we mean when we write our answers there, right? So relations are sets of tuples, so no duplicates. SQL tables are multi-sets of tuples, unless we have primary keys, right? Okay. We also talked about different types of keys. We know that a super key is any set of attributes grouped together that can uniquely identify a tuple, right? A minimal super key, so a super key can have extraneous attributes that do not add anything to that uniqueness, right? So account ID and account balance would be a super key. However, account balance is an extraneous redundant attribute that is not needed, right? So just account ID is more than enough to identify every tuple, because balances can be duplicated, right? Balances, two people can have the same balance. So a minimal super key is called a candidate key, right? So a key, a set of attributes that can be used to uniquely identify a tuple, and it does not have any extra redundant attributes. So that what I mean by that is if any attribute is removed from that candidate key, it is no longer a key. And one of those candidate keys are usually chosen to be a primary key, right? Okay. We also have the concept of foreign keys. We will talk a lot about foreign keys in the next half of the semester. We will also talk a bit about, a lot about actually about candidate keys and how we can prove something. Remember, we have not talked anything about proving whether something can be a candidate key or not. We will talk about that a lot later. And we also talked about referential integrity constraints. That is essentially where one table references another table, right? Another table's primary key. So for example, the loan table accesses the account ID from the account table. Okay. Foreign keys had some issues that we needed to tiptoe around, and that would be an example for new homeworks as well. But we know that if a particular table references another table, then we need to make sure that certain constraints are held. So for example, in this particular case, the account table has a primary key of account number, branch name, and balance or other attributes. The depositor table has customer name and account number. So that also means that account number here is referencing the account number in the account table. So account number is a foreign key. So depositor is the referencing relation that is referencing the account table, right? Account is also sometimes called the referenced relation, right? So, very good question, Cameron. No. Remember that when we say that, let me see if I have an example here somewhere. I have it a bit later, but very good question. Let me come back, bring that. So let's say that we are defining the depositor table, right? So we say create table depositor, and what's customer name? Let's say that it's right, and we have, what was it, account number, that is, let's say integer, let's say that. And now we say it is a foreign key references the table that is account, right? So if we have this, then it means that my depositor table is only referencing the primary key from the account table. However, we can also specify a particular attribute that we want to make sure that this references. In that scenario, we can say from the account table, and this would be a wrong example, but from the account table, you know what, I want you to reference the balance attribute. So if we want our foreign key to reference primary keys, then we would just have the table name. However, if we want to